My wife broke our marriage while I was in the military, so I built my life without her. I'm 37 and married to Sharon, who's 39, for 6 years. We've known each other for 10. I'm in the Navy, so I'm gone about 6 to 7 months a year. It's a tough life, yes, but we both knew what we were getting into. Still, after 6 years of marriage, everything changed overnight. We were having our usual date night over video chat, enjoying wine and steaks, joking and laughing like we always did. And then she said it. "I have something to say. Let's open our marriage." I almost choked on my wine. At first I laughed, thinking it was a joke. Maybe I had misheard. I leaned closer to the screen, trying to gauge her expression. She wasn't joking. She smiled, but it was a calm, serious smile that made my stomach sink. I asked her, "Okay, where's the joke?" She didn't answer me directly. She began venting about her feelings, how lonely she felt, how she had been thinking about this for a long time, and that she didn't want to waste her remaining years without fully exploring her sexuality. She said that our life together, as it was, felt insufficient. I tried to stay calm. I reminded her that we had agreed on this life when we married, that my job demands this distance, and that I'd always tried to support her emotionally despite being away. But she wasn't listening. She was set on her decision. She told me that opening the marriage wasn't about leaving me, it was about satisfying her needs while I was away. She said she would still love only me, that I was her husband and primary partner, but that other men would simply be accessories to her life when I wasn't there. She even said she hadn't cheated. Well, mostly. But she would if she didn't take this opportunity. Her reasoning was twisted, and it made me feel a mixture of shock, anger, and deep hurt. I asked her questions. How would this help with the loneliness? Who would take care of her when she was sick? Who would celebrate birthdays with her? She didn't have clear answers. She just said, "I'll figure it out as I go." I asked her if she expected me to stay monogamous. She laughed, clearly believing she had already won, and said it was only fair that I could see other women if I wanted. But that wasn't what I wanted. I wanted a committed marriage, a life built together, not one dismantled by her whims. I told her I needed time to think. She insisted on resolving it immediately. I couldn't. I had to step away, trying to process that my marriage, the foundation of my life, had been pulled out from under me. Over the following weeks, I focused on myself. I didn't respond to most of her messages. I ignored the photos she posted flaunting dates, vacations, and parties. I rebuilt my life. I joined a badminton club, started swimming regularly, enrolled in courses I had been putting off, and reconnected with old friends. I wasn't trying to get back at her or have an affair. I was simply reclaiming my life. I realized how much I had neglected my own growth for the sake of our marriage. Nights at sea can be lonely, yes, but I had spent too many of them worrying about her satisfaction instead of planning my own future. Now I was doing both. I discovered that independence felt good. For the first time in years, I made decisions purely for myself. The gym, social activities, hobbies, and personal milestones. I even began journaling, something I hadn't done since before we married. Writing down my thoughts and fears, then seeing my progress over weeks was therapeutic. I had a sense of direction again. I began reflecting more deeply on my own needs. I realized I had spent so much time trying to mold my life around someone else's happiness that I had forgotten what it meant to truly live for myself. I started setting boundaries, understanding that self-respect is not selfishness. Every day I felt stronger mentally, more confident emotionally, and more capable of navigating the challenges of my life without relying on someone else for validation. Update 1. Sharon began reaching out more aggressively, trying to draw me back into her plan. She wanted to meet to set rules for the open marriage, but I refused. I told her she could do whatever she wanted, but I wasn't participating. She couldn't control my life anymore. Soon, the social consequences hit her. Friends and acquaintances who had once welcomed her at parties and gatherings started avoiding her. Invitations dried up. She complained, asking why she was being excluded. I reminded her that she had chosen this path and now she had to live with it. Meanwhile, I continued building my new life. I spent weekends camping with my niece and nephew, visited my parents, attended parties with fellow officers, and focused on personal growth. I embraced routines I had neglected: fitness, skill building, socializing, and rediscovering hobbies I loved. I felt a sense of empowerment with every small step, taking control of my finances, setting personal goals, and managing my time without compromise. As she saw me thriving without her, her attempts to manipulate me emotionally failed. She even sent an email proposing a return to monogamy, but I simply replied, "Ha, that's all." Update 2. Months later, Sharon showed up unannounced at my new apartment, looking flustered and out of place. She asked why I wasn't living with her, why I had left our home. I calmly explained that I had no intention of living with someone who had openly broken our marriage. She tried to argue, saying we could work it out. I reminded her that she had made her choice, and now I was making mine. Her social isolation intensified. Former friends distanced themselves, invitations disappeared. She had burned bridges that couldn't easily be rebuilt. She tried to manipulate the situation through my parents, portraying herself as the victim, but they already knew the truth. She was left with no allies, and her carefully curated image of a glamorous, independent life began to crumble. I had hired a lawyer and prepared divorce proceedings. When the papers were delivered, she panicked. She called frantically, threatening to fight, but unable to reverse the consequences of her decisions. Her savings, once sufficient to maintain her luxurious lifestyle, were quickly depleted. She realized too late that her freedom came with a cost she hadn't calculated. Update 3. The divorce is almost finalized. Division of assets has been completed fairly, and I am selling the house. I have fully embraced life on my own terms. I'm not bitter, just grateful I didn't let her choices ruin my future. I've rebuilt my routine, my social life, and my personal happiness. Sharon now stalks my social media through new accounts, but I let her watch from afar. I don't interact, I don't respond, and I continue to thrive. Her Instagram, once filled with exotic vacations and glamorous parties, is now a collection of sad quotes and lonely reflections. The choices she made have consequences, and she is living them fully. I'm free, fulfilled, and moving forward. The marriage she tried to destroy is over, but my life continues to expand in ways I never imagined. I'm stronger, happier, and finally in control of my own destiny. Each day, I feel lighter, more confident, and more certain that the life I am building now is the one I was meant to live. I also realize that self-worth is not determined by another person's decisions. By focusing on my goals, hobbies, and relationships outside of her influence, I regained confidence I hadn't felt in years. The sense of empowerment that comes from reclaiming one's life is unmatched. I've learned that happiness is not dependent on anyone else, and that the strength to build a fulfilling life exists within oneself.